Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is August 23rd, 2024, and this is episode 942 of Living Free in Tennessee. I don't know why I went back 100. That's just weird.
Okay.
Anyway, so it's a Homestead Happenings show, and today we're going to talk about pawpaw fruit. We're going to talk about fencing, a bunch of other stuff. When we sat down this morning to talk about what we wanted to talk about, I realized that this week was a lot about doing the same things we always do, and we could just go over that with y'all, or we could talk about some sort of like forward-looking stuff. So I thought it would be fun to cover some of the thinking behind some of the things that we do here. How does that sound tactical? Okay. I would like to talk to you about something. We have it's an intervention time.
Okay.
Okay. So I have an audio podcast, right?
Yep.
And when you answer me with body language and no words, what do you think the people on the audio podcast hear?
Silent redneck.
Right. So
awesome.
what did your thumbs up and nod mean in words?
Okay.
He just got busted. I'm going to be busting his chops about that for the whole event. What do you think?
Okay, whatever.
Okay, whatever. Okay. And anyway, for those of you on the video, you probably saw what just went down, but I was like, what? If you want to get questions in for this show and you have curiosity about anything that we're doing here at the Holler Homestead, put the word question in all caps. Today is a light agenda. So lots of room for like, just ask us anything really. You can put that into there. Also, those of you on the live stream, don't forget to like and share out that we're live. I am streaming at a different time than usual because I was supposed to be in California today, and the West Coast, like streaming from my mom's house before everybody wakes up isn't usually a good idea. So I just stuck to the schedule that we announced, which is why we're starting at 10:30 today instead of 11:30. My trip got canceled because I'm still sick. I've been sick since August 3rd. We will talk about what it is later in the show because we figured out what's going on this week. So it's been a fun week. Very fun. Before we jump into the main topics, though, guess what my featured event of today's show is? SelfRelianceFestival.com. Self-Reliance Festival is coming in just a little over 6 weeks. It's October 4th and 5th in Camden, Tennessee. I'm sorry. It's October 5th and 6th in Camden, Tennessee, because I don't do numbers. And October 3rd and 4th, we have pre-event workshops. We've got Sonny Puzika's coming in for one day. It's going to be more about self-defense, and you can do that at any fitness level because he's not only teaching you like moves and things, but he's teaching you mindsets, way to redefine a fight if a fight comes. Then the second day, which is really like the more important one, I think, is de-escalation tactics and psychology behind it. So it's ways to avoid, the fight you always win. Mm-hmm. It's the one you never have, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So think about that. Sometimes we get like all up in our heads, and you've seen it happen where somebody's like super unreasonable in response to somebody and it escalates the situation. Why not learn ways to de-escalate situations? That's going to be all over at selfreliancefestival.com, and prices are going up on September 1st. So if you think you're going to come out, now is a good time to get your ticket. Selfreliancefestival.com. The initial speaking agenda is up on the website. The demonstrations, which there are so many demonstrations this time, that's going up next. And then the kids, there's a Self-Reliance Festival Kids, SRF Kids program with 4 sessions that are about 2 hours long each. That whole agenda should be up by the end of the weekend too. So you can see everything that's going on, everybody who's going to be there. There's going to be great vendors. We've got some awesome sponsors who've made it happen. Selfreliancefestival.com. I also wanted to thank our 2 sponsors of today's show. First sponsor is Discount Mylar Bags. Discount Mylar Bags has all of your Mylar bag needs. And the way it works is the owner of the business does something shocking. He sources things in bulk and then passes on savings to you. And he's really careful about quality. And he's spent a lot of time doing it. The way he got into this is he was really interested in preparedness. And he was going to all these like meetups in his area, and there's like people who can start fire with string, and there's people who are like super tactical awesome, and there are people who know how to preserve food. And he's like, okay, so like in an SHTF situation, I'm screwed because I have nothing to bring to the table. And then he realized he did, because what he's good at is sourcing things in bulk and passing on savings to people. And so he went from working a full-time job to basically running a lifestyle business, doing that for people in our community. Check that out at Discount Mylar Bags. If you are a member, there is a discount code. Don't forget to use it. Our second sponsor of today's show is John Pugliano and the Wealth Steading podcast. You know, you can be as ready for things as you can from skills and all of that. But if you have ignored your financial well-being, it's harder when things go wrong. It's a lot harder when things go wrong. So even if you're in a situation right now where you're like, well, she's talking about me, I feel personally called out by Nicole Sauce on her podcast. Okay, good. You did the first thing. You admitted you had a problem. So while you're getting your financial ducks in a row, why not learn about investment and how making your wealth grow works? Go to investablewealth.com and check out the podcast, the Wealth Studying Podcast. Short episodes, very understandable, all about investing and sort of his money philosophy. If you go back to the beginning, he has his principles of building wealth at the very beginning. Those are really helpful, especially if you're in that former category of I'm not ready to invest yet, and oh crap, I have a problem. So check it out, investablewealth.com. With that, it's time for our first session. How many minutes did you not get to speak, Tactical? And I'm hoping you're going to answer the second I stop talking.
I don't know.
You don't know? You didn't time it this time?
No.
Okay. To the best of your ability, get close to that mic when you're talking, because we have a real problem with the audio when you're way back there like that. Here's the problem. We have two introverts on a podcast together who like space bubbles. And a space bubble that's appropriate for me is if I can't reach out and touch you, you're probably far enough away. I'm pretty sure it's the same for Tactical, only he's 6'4". Mm-hmm. Yeah, his arms are really freaking long. So, am I right?
I usually have a tool in my hand, so that also extends reach.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so I told you I was going to bust your chops today on the show. What do you think about it? Is it pissing you off yet? No. Okay. So I want to talk to you about electric fencing. Okay. So we've been running, by we, I mean you mostly, you like 99.9% of the time, has been running electric fencing, temporary single strand wire to move sheep for a year and a half. Did you know that?
For some reason, I thought it was longer than that, but.
It's a year. I'm sorry, two and a half years. Did I say a year and a half?
Yeah.
You've been doing it for 2.5 years.
Seems like about 5.
Why is it hard?
The first year was brutal.
So I'm always a little amused when I hear other personalities talk about just adding sheep to your homestead and how awesome it is, and it's hardly any work. And that's potentially true on a flat homestead, although everybody I know on a flat homestead does a lot of work too, if they're rotating the sheep every 3 to 7 days. Because the moving of the fence and the managing of the flock when you're rotating sheep is more time intensive. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, if I was on a flat piece of dirt, then...
You mean with soil?
Yeah. Then the only reason I wouldn't just be stringing 19 paddocks at a time is because you're going to want to mow your fence lines in between. But other than that, like, I can imagine how easy it would be to do it on that scale.
Yeah. Well, and they have I've seen these devices where it's a rolling thing that strings the wire and drops posts. And this assumes a couple of things. 1, you're basically on flat ground.
Yeah.
2, your grass is not as tall as you are. 3, you also have soil that you can poke the pokey thing in.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things is seeing all these dudes on, they've got their 4-wheeler and a rack with all their posts, and they just take the post and hook it on the wire and stick it in the ground. And it's like, yeah, you can't do that here at all, ever.
Yeah, that's not a thing here. So, but there are some best practices, what 2 or 3 things would you think people would want to know about how to put posts in, how to face them, that sort of thing, to make their life a little bit easier, and how to plan paddocks?
The first thing is going to be, don't skimp on what you buy, and plan on continually buying more until you have more than you think you need. Like, if you think you need 100 posts, plan on stopping at like 200 or 300 posts. There's more than one occasion where it's like, I'm going to Tractor Supply today to buy the worst post imaginable because I need some right now. And
so let's talk about that. So Tractor Supply posts, even the best ones at Tractor Supply, are not of the quality you prefer to use in the pasture, right?
They basically sell two different kinds of posts. One of them, within a year, you can take it and like tap it against something else and it'll snap in half. The clips break off of them constantly. The clips are a pain to get the wire in and out of. The other one is a fiberglass post with 4 clips that aren't bad. The problem is, around here, you cannot get those into the ground. You have to literally beat them in.
So
with a
what
hammer.
brand of and variety of posts do you think is the best and why?
It depends. I prefer, for where we're at, the timeless, or not the timeless, the
Premier?
no, strain right.
Strain right?
I believe it's the strain right.
Okay.
And the two reasons that I really prefer those is the metal spike on the bottom is a bigger diameter, which makes it less likely to bend when I hit rocks.
Okay, which is good, because then if you have a post that does this instead of this, it's hard to ever use that post again. And bending metal back and forth a million times, we all know what that does.
Yes, and I have even the ones I'm using, I have bent the metal on those. And the other thing that I really like about those is the little clips that you actually hook the wire onto. And that's kind of somewhat of a personal preference thing. There's a number of good posts out there. Eventually, I will review a bunch of them because I have a bunch of them and I've used all of the ones that I have, which is how I settled on the ones that I primarily use.
So your favorite, again, what brand is that?
I believe it's the strain right. I will have to
strain, like strain right.
It's like STRAINRITE.
Strain right. Okay. And when you're putting posts in the ground, do you face the clips in or out on the electric strand wiring, and why?
I don't care whether they're in or out. The way I prefer to do it is, if I know which way I'm running the wire, I will put the hooks facing away from me. Like, just say I'm going from left to right. I will put the hook facing either front to back, but with the open end on the right hand side. Because as I walk past the post, I can hook the wire. I can just grab the reel to tension the wire and just hook it on the hook. So it's kind of hard to describe without, actually seeing it, but that's my preferred direction to set the post so that I can do that.
And then your least favorite thing in the whole world is when somebody else strings the wire for you, because they always start in the wrong place and end in the wrong place. How do you plan out where you're going to start and end so that when you rotate to the next paddock, it's easier?
This very much depends on how many reels you have. And I have enough reels now because every couple of months I will buy, 3 reels and a spool of wire and string them all. And so with as many reels as I have, what I always try to do is never run a single set of reels on more than 2 sides of a paddock. Because if you try to run it on 3 sides of a paddock or 4 sides, it's too much tension just dragging along the ground and getting caught on everything else to be able to just reel it back up.
Yeah, what he means by that is when he's moving it, he unclips everything, goes to one end and can stand there and it strings through like spaghetti.
It's like reeling up a fishing pole.
Right.
But, imagine wrapping a fishing line around your house and then trying to reel it up. It's a lot more difficult. So I try to limit to no more than 2 sides of a paddock. And then I always try to plan, especially now I've got basically my paddocks are going to be in the same place. I'm getting ready to make some adjustments to that, but for the most part, the paddocks are pretty well established. And so I try to plan that, my wires are going to, or my reels are going to end up in the same place. So the same corner that I terminate one set, I'll terminate the other set. And then I always try to have a set terminated with the reel in the spot where they're going to the next paddock so that I can reel the wire back up, just say 10 or 15 feet, let the sheep through, and then put it right back in place. And before, a lot of times I was having to like lower the wire down the ground to the ground and then try to get the sheep to go across it. And then of course you're teaching the sheep that there are times that they can go across the wire. So now that I've gotten enough equipment and I've gotten my paddocks worked out and my rotation worked out, I've done a pretty good job thus far of being able to plan how to do that, where I've got the reels terminated where they're at and I can just pull it back a little bit. And that works really well, especially like everybody thinks sheep are stupid. They're not. I can be halfway across the pasture and start rolling a reel up. And when they hear that, they think they're moving to a different paddock. Because a lot of times I'm doing something with the reels right before they move. So a lot of times I literally be on the other side of the pasture, start reeling something up, and they'll all cluster as close as they can get to me because they think they're about to move.
Yeah, and sheep like moving to new paddocks because the grass is always greener on the other side. Plus, they usually graze. So they're like, ooh, new fresh stuff. Super excited about that. So Pack Rat says +1 on doing fence post reviews. All your electric fence supplies, really, as you have years of hilly, rocky experience. Yeah, that's sort of Tennessee in a nutshell, is hilly and rocky.
Yeah.
And sheep are great on that because they can help you reduce the need to weed whack or any of those other things because they're eating the vegetation. So they're helping maintain it and they're building soil. But at the same time, you got to deal with the fact that it's hilly and rocky. And you'll be like, I need a post right here. And you're like, no post going there. I'm going to go 6 inches that way or the other way because there's no soil.
And speaking of that, one of the best things that I did was started running, I call it semi-permanent wire. And I did it through tree lines. So my preference is to go at least 10 or 15 feet into a tree line because you're past the edge where everything grows. And so the paddock that they're about to move in, I mean, there's places where the wire is 30 feet into the woods line, and I've already looked up there. And I don't have to go weed eat anything before I move them up there. And that wire is just there.
Yeah, so that's an aluminum wire, right?
That's aluminum wire. And just as an example, that stretch that I'm talking about is mostly just, I put 2 or 3 insulators into a tree. And then there's one spot in that run where there were no trees, and it was a long run and the grade changed. So I used 2 step-in posts that I don't really like that much and just left them there.
Yeah, we call that semi-permanent because if we ever had to take it out, we could. Yeah. But it's just there all the time. And when we go into paddocks with that, it's already there. and we don't have to run anything. And the more of that we can have in place, the more efficient it becomes for moving sheep, except that in the middle of the beautiful pasture, you don't want a thing going through the middle of it if you need to do maintenance, because the sheep come through and graze, but like perilla is not something they eat, but it'll get as tall as you and me if you let it. And so after they've grazed, like knocking down whatever's left is helping to facilitate growth of the things that you want growing in the pasture and discourage the long-term establishment of the things we don't want in the pasture.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move subjects now. How many of the people in the live stream right now raise sheep or goats? I'm curious about that, because I got, like, there's been a cat fight on the sheep group about how people raise their sheep. And it started with the post of somebody who's been raising sheep for 20 years, ridiculing people who are newly getting into sheep for saying, I'm going to do it without feeding them grain, without vaccinating them, and never worm them. And he went on about it because he's like, how many of you are getting, barber pole worm issues right now? And other people chimed in and are like, you're an idiot. And other people chimed in and are like, I'm glad you finally said this, because people are killing sheep for no reason. And so then I was just wondering if anybody in the live stream is raising sheep. And so far, nobody said yes. But how many times have we wormed the sheep?
None.
How many times have we vaccinated the sheep?
Vaccinated the one that got sick.
No, we didn't. We gave him antibiotics.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
We gave him medication.
So he actually got, so our first year of the sheep, we had some issues. And
which was probably just due to the fact that nothing had been grazed there.
Nothing had been grazed. They moved to a new pasture, and that's a different gut biome required for digesting too. So that's hard on your ruminants. They have to develop the bacteria. So what I learned about that is get hay from where you source your sheep and feed them that and gradually move them onto the pasture, or it can be sort of shocking to their system.
Yeah.
And so we had some issues about that, but we had one get a brain infection, and the veterinarian came out and gave him ivermectin. So he was wormed with ivermectin just in case. And then he got antibiotics, and then we let that come out of his system and we processed him, because our philosophy is keep the genetics strong. Well, we started with a really strong flock because Dawn Sutton, who, if you come to Self-Reliance Festival, you'll meet Dawn Sutton. We bought the sheep from her, and they were strong genetics. They had been already trained on grass and hadn't been vaccinated. So now we're 2.5 years in, and none of the problems we've had have been about that. But what we're doing to maintain that is rotate them. And my thought is this, like, if I see signs that the parasite load on the sheep are too high, I would worm them.
Yeah.
Because they will die if you don't handle that. But we're trying to keep their natural immune systems high. We have strong, like genetically strong sheep, and we're trying to keep them in a condition where it's just not an issue. And then we move them, right?
Yes.
So it's a different philosophy, but it's not wrong or right. And that's my point, is you may do something different than somebody else, but it's not wrong or right. And when you get into a discussion about how to raise livestock in a specific way or another, rather than being like, my way is the right way and everybody else is an idiot, like, watch your tone and learn about why they're doing it that way. Because I can totally see you're raising 500 head of sheep in a small area, and they're encountering their own poop and can get more parasites faster, or they're a breed of sheep that is wool or is something else that's more likely to get as well, not keep the population under control. Well, yeah, it's maybe you do need to worm them. Like little sheep, the bottle baby is the one who's most likely to need that.
Yeah.
Because she's smaller than everybody else, and I'm suspecting probably not as immune system developed.
Yeah. I mean, I have several thoughts on that. And the first is, it's kind of like telling me how I should take a road trip to California. The way I'm going to take a road trip to California is going to be very different than you, because you're driving a semi truck and I'm going to be driving a Jeep with all the stuff that I need. Like, we're doing the same thing, but two completely different ways. And, you know, there's a local person here that has had a significant herd of sheep, said, you know, when God invented sheep, they didn't invent barns. Yes, that's true. God also didn't invent fences. So we've contained the sheep into an area. So we have to provide the things like water that they can't get to because we put a fence in the way. So there is a certain aspect to me of just letting nature do nature, but there's also an aspect of, what did you change? Because you need to accommodate for that.
Yeah, that and keeping a small flock of under 20 sheep. Like when we lose one, that's 1/20th of the effort we've put in, which is why I'm willing to intervene. Like why I was willing to do antibiotics. I was not willing to sell that to any of the people who buy our meat. So we kept that meat for us. But it was like make him better and then cull him in, 4 or 5 months. And that gets us some more meat in the freezer, or let him die right now and nothing. And like it's compost at that point. Yeah. So, that's my philosophy is I try to stay away from those things as much as possible. But if things are needed, things are needed. We do need to be watching for barber pole worms very carefully at this time of year. Speaking of that. Okay, I had a question on a YouTube that like short. What is a pawpaw? This is a pawpaw. A pawpaw is the largest fruit native to North America, and it grows not all over North America everywhere, but it grows a lot. Like it grows in New England, it grows here, and it just, it almost looks like a walnut, but it's oval, and they can be bigger than the one I'm showing you right now or smaller. And I asked Tactical to make sure we had a ripe one, but not an overripe one today. If you have these when they're underripe, they taste astringent, like, when you get a persimmon that's not ripe yet. You ever tasted that?
Yeah.
It's like chalk meets bitter. So we're gonna cut one open on screen so you can see what they look like, and then we'll do a taste test. When I first moved to the hauler, the very first thing I did was put fruit trees in, none of which have been very viable. And pawpaw was on the list because it was native. And so when you cut it open, the flesh is sort of yellow and there's a lot of seeds in there. Most of them ended up on the other side. And you don't eat the seeds. So I like to use a tiny little spoon to dig out the seeds. And the texture is kind of like a custard, really. So, you scoop the seeds out and then you're left with like a little bit of custard. And then, there's one more seed. As I said, there's lots of seeds. Now they make domesticated varieties that will minimize some of this. This is just a wild one. And it tastes like a combination between pear and banana. So it's sweet. What do you think of that flavor? How would you describe that flavor? This is perfectly ripe. Good job on choice.
Yeah, it's kind of between those two.
The mouthfeel is more like an egg, like a flan. Would you say that? Have you had flan?
I don't know.
Flan's that dessert that you get that's like a creamy thing with the top that's crunchy sugar that's burnt.
No.
You don't know what that is?
Never had that.
Okay. Yeah, so pawpaw is delicious, but they don't preserve well. There are ways to preserve them, and you can go check those out. And some people are sensitive after they've been, I can't remember if it's frozen or dried or dehydrated, but some people, it's one of those two that makes people have diarrhea, basically. But fresh, they're fine for me. Anytime you're trying a new wild food, you should try a little bit of it. before you do a lot, because you might be allergic. You never know. So that's what a pawpaw is. And if you get a chance to taste one, you totally should. So that being said, we're probably going to have pawpaws coming off the trees for about another week here. So anybody who knows me probably could talk me into finding them a pawpaw. But by me, I mean him.
Yeah.
He's scoped out all the pawpaw spots beyond my usual pawpaw spots. So, and then we're going to take these seeds and put them out wherever and hope we have additional pawpaw trees come. But it's always like fun to find wild stuff. And then this is one of my favorite. I really like how these taste. So I'll eat usually about one a day during this time. They last about a week in the fridge. Part of why I think they're not commercially available, besides they have some ones that are packaged, like processed packaged. Part of why they're not commercially available is pawpaws do not travel well.
No.
They go bad fast. They don't travel well. They get bruises, and then it's like tasting a bruised banana. It's like, I can eat it, but it's not as good as what I thought. They have developed some cultivars that are more shippable, but basically you're not going to find pawpaws in the grocery store.
No.
You might find them at your farmer's market this weekend here. And then people to the north of us, I suspect they'll be ripe later, although I saw somebody in Ohio harvesting them last week too, so I don't know.
You said the timing was off this year.
They were 2 weeks early this year here for me. Yeah. Like I was walking and I saw like coyote poop with seeds in it that looked like pawpaw seeds, and then like, I don't know, a day or two later you were like, here's pawpaws.
I mean, there's a decent number on one of the trees that's out there, and I mean, I would just guess based on what I've seen so far that for at least another week I could go kick that tree and more would fall out of it.
Yeah, and the way we harvest them is we shake the tree and they fall. We pick those up. You don't want the hard ones from the tree because they just won't ever taste good. Okay, so today you had a really important phone call from my perspective.
Okay.
You talked to Jason from Kentucky Sustainable Living. What'd you guys talk about?
Concrete.
Why'd you talk about concrete?
Trying to figure out exactly what we're going to do.
For what?
Pouring several slabs.
Okay, why are we pouring several slabs?
Because I get to play with an excavator.
No, because there's a pool going in here. So we've got to get a slab poured basically next week to go under a pool. And it may slip over into the week after. Who knows? Like, whatever. But the excavator was supposed to be here yesterday or today. A part broke. So he won't be here till Tuesday. And then I don't know a lot about pouring concrete. Do you?
I know a decent amount.
Yeah. But not accomplished at overseeing the pour from the big truck.
I've never actually done like a concrete pour. I've been present for a lot of them, but never actually done it.
So Jason doesn't love this work, but he used to do it professionally. And I was like, hey, dude, can you come down and like tell us what to do and show us how to do it so that we can oversee multiple pours over the next 2 years? Because a truck full of concrete is running about $1,700 right now. Paying a guy to oversee the concrete pour for one truck is costing $4,000. That takes then another, let me think about it. So that takes what, an hour to do? Maybe an hour and a half?
Depending, yeah.
So it hurts my feelings to pay anybody $4,000 for an hour and a half's worth of work. I understand you got to drive to my house, but still. Like, if it was $500, sure. But, you know, they can ask whatever price they want in this environment, and I don't begrudge them that, but I don't want to pay that. And I need a concrete pad that's 6 inches thick with rebar in it. So, what'd you discover? Anything exciting we should share or just move on?
I mean, we basically went through a number of different things, mostly revolving around the weirdness of this property. As far as the actual slab goes, I mean, he said if you're getting the microfiber in it, it'll probably be fine. If you want extra insurance, you can put some rebar in it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, the pool store guys were like adamant about microfiber isn't enough under these things.
Okay.
So I'd rather do the extra insurance and not crack something that costs that much money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's happening, and that's exciting to me, and hopefully I'll be here for it to happen, but I might not. We'll talk about why at the end of the episode. Part of this, though, is looking at where it goes and how the rest of the homestead flows around it. So that conversation, like we've had it a couple times, but we're going to have 2.0 discussion today, I think.
Probably.
Yeah, because I changed my mind. It's not that I changed my mind. It's that I went to go to the store to get the things to have specifics before the excavator got here. And a swim spa was on sale because it's the end of the season to within very close to what an above ground pool is going to cost me. And I would rather have a swim spa, to be completely transparent. So, so we're 99% sure that's what's going in, but until the excavating happens, we don't really know. And until I swim in the one on the floor, we don't really know for sure. But it's looking like that's what's happening. And that's going to be like, so we're setting it up as part of the hip camp and Airbnb stuff here. So when you rent your camp spot, you get access to the pool. I'm going to sell a membership to give people access to the pool. And so I have to buy my own membership personally to use the pool.
Okay.
But that's all happening as part of what we're doing from the sort of the homestead, what's the word? Agritourism standpoint, like getting it all set up. And we want it set up so like overflow feeds plants, and that it's like kind of a nice little area for growing edible plants as well.
Yeah.
And we have to do it in a way that keeps ducks out of the swim spa.
That's not really hard.
It's not going to be super hard because there's a cover that's like the thick insulated cover that will be on it that's heavy AF when it's not in use, because the electricity usage to maintain it is like way lower if you don't leave it open to the air.
Yeah.
And then we may build in some more like sustainable things to it, like a solar water heater to heat it in the times of year when it needs heating, just because it's not hard to build that. It's not expensive to build that. And then that means no electricity for the amount it's able to heat from the sun.
Yeah.
So lots of we'll just share those stories as they happen. But that is something that's sort of dominating right now because the excavator guy was supposed to be here. So we no longer need a wood chipper, right?
Yeah, set all things on fire.
So we had all of this brush from taking the trees out, and there were just piles of brush everywhere. I didn't like how it looked, but I acknowledged that we wanted wood chips for use. And then we got the wood chipper working. And was it easy to use that little wood chipper for the big wood chips?
No.
How many chips could a woodchuck chip?
I mean, it can go through some of those smaller limbs pretty well, but a lot of that stuff was just not feasible to run through that.
Yeah, so Nighthawk's wood chipper is really good for the fodder trees pieces, so that you feed them to the ruminants, and then what's left is a stick, and then the sticks go through. That's actually really good for that. And I should actually do some laps of that this week too, or this weekend rather, before it gets 100 degrees again, like it's going to do next week. So, so I was like, why don't we just burn the piles? Because he was like, I'm going to rent a wood chipper, and that's like what, $300 to $500 a day.
Yeah, it's like $250.
I was like, are we going to get enough? Like, can I just pay a guy to deliver wood chips for $250? Like, because it's a whole lot less work to do that. And if it's the same amount of money, then So he burnt piles. And you're tired from that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Burning piles is more work than you think it is. So that's looking good. I changed water filters. So I've been using a Berkey here for 17 years. And I changed water filters. And it was supposed to filter stuff out of the water. And I think I misunderstood what it was filtering out of the water. But I'm actually in the process of exploring that aspect of it. Like, I'm looking at the specific model number. because it didn't filter out what I needed it to. So I have been really sick all month since August 3rd, basically. And a lot of you know that. I've like first week I couldn't even do anything. And then I've been sort of like hitting things as best I can. But those of you who know me know I've also been sick the whole time. So I got sick of being sick and went to the doctor, and something really cool happened at the doctor. I met a local doctor who's a real doctor. Isn't that cool?
Yes.
So I'm like, I want that one as my GP here locally, right? So he listened to my symptoms, asked me one question, are you on well water? And is testing me to find out specifically which parasite I have, because I have a parasite that was not caught by the new water filter. And is going to treat me based on the test results.
It's weird how that works.
And then he sits down and he's like, I need to talk to you about nutrition because your digestive tract is pissed off. And here's how you need to build that back up. And he gave me actual advice that I would give myself on that. Like, not just go eat yogurt and you'll be okay. Like, he was like, here's a 10-point plan. It wasn't quite a 10-point plan, but he was like, this is what you need to do. And as I'm talking to him, it comes out that he owns the clinic I'm at. And the clinic I was at was Satellite Med in Cookeville, Tennessee, which has been, when we talk about working for yourself and medical expenses being difficult to get your hands around and insurance and all those things. And then like my approach has been to get a health share and then cash pay and reimburse anything the health share will share, which is transparently not most of the things that I need to do medically, because they assume you're taking care of your health, your medical maintenance. And we've talked about direct primary care, where you subscribe to your primary care and you get, better service. So there's lots of options out there now, but not every state has like a really good network to deal with. But something I've always been impressed with since moving to this location in Tennessee has been that Satellite Med, which is it's a combination urgent care clinic and clinic that provides a variety of services, has always published their rates. So you know how much you're paying, and they don't accept government insurance. And so whenever I'm talking about like finding a better medical solution and about free market medicine, they're one of the examples I have been talking about for a long time. I'm like, oh man, I've been talking about when I work in sort of the medical reform area or free market medicine, yours is one of the clinics I talk about all the time, because without this clinic in Cookeville, it would be hard for a lot of people to get care that they can afford, because you can call them and be like, I'm going to need an x-ray. How much is it going to be? And they'll be like, well, we can't promise you what your whole appointment will be, but an x-ray is this much, an appointment is that much, this other kind of appointment is that much. If we have other tests we need to run, it's this much. If we have to take a second x-ray, that's another this much, right? So they know what it's going to cost. And if you compare their fee structure to what other clinics that accept government insurance, what you'll find is many clinics, when you call them and ask how much things cost, cannot answer that question. B, they have a different scale depending on who your insurance is. So the cash price for an MRI, for example, might be $550. Okay. That's cash price. The insurance billed price for that same MRI, if you have government insurance, might be $2,500. And you just got whiplash because, when you're in a network like that, it's supposed to cost less because there's a volume discount, right? No, it costs more. And then your out of pocket may be more than $500 for that MRI. I'm pretty sure it's considered fraud to lie about if you have insurance or not and just pay cash if it's more expensive for something on your insurance too. That's something I'm going to be looking into, because I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think that might be an issue. So then the act of having insurance, which is costing you a lot of money, means that you're also paying more for some things because then the negotiated price is higher. Well, Satellite Med doesn't do that. So anyway, when I got to know him, I was like, oh man, I've been wanting to talk to you for years. Like, I want to interview this guy really badly. And I probably will do my best to be able to do that. But it was really cool. So when I find out which issue I have, I'll be able to treat it. But between now and then, I've also been like kind of very clear on what needs to happen nutritionally as part of the recovery. How come you were lurking in the door like that?
Because I wanted to stand.
Oh, I see. Stand in the place where you live. That's right. Everything's a song. So Pack Rat has a question. Best silver water filter available to Tennessee without bootlegging them yourself across the Canadian border? I don't know, because the only filter I've ever used that actually worked for 17 years was a Berkey filter. And I still use a Berkey filter. I was about a week and a half into being really dang sick when I was like, you know what? I wonder if the new water filter isn't working right for me. And so I went to the Berkey again. And he had stayed on the Berkey the whole time and hadn't gotten sick. So
yeah. And I'll give you a hack for researching a filter. What you're looking for is the micron level. The micron level is how big the holes in the mesh are. And you're looking for holes that are small enough to filter out the parasites and stuff. And I think it's like, I'm not going to remember the numbers, but it's like 0.02 or 0.04 microns, I think, or something along those lines is your two big numbers for your not friendly to your gut things.
Well, and then the silver in there is part of the not friendly to your gut things, which is why they're in litigation with the EPA about being a pesticide, which is complete and utter bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's been a lot of controversy about the Berkey filters not working or not doing what they say. And last time I looked into that, it was fake, like knockoff filters. But then I was talking to somebody who said, no, I think it's them. And then I'm like, well, okay, so I went 17 years without a problem here. And I changed filters and then I had a problem. So I think the Berkey was working here for 17 years.
Yeah.
You can buy a Berkey system and it comes with the filters. That's the other way to get them. But the other option is to get somebody in another country to mail you your Berkey filters, because Berkey is not selling their replacement filters in the United States because of I think it's a cease and desist related to the EPA suing them for calling it a water filter when it's really pesticide because it has silver in it.
I'd like to sue the EPA for endangering my life because I can't get water filters.
You know, it's time for me to do a round of water testing anyway. And I think when I do the water testing, I'm going to do the post Berkey filtered water too, just because I'm curious about it. So our neighbors have lost a few chickens recently.
Yes.
And Tactical brought up yesterday, maybe because they get the same feed we do that made our ducks get really sick, it's a vitamin thing.
I would lean in that direction just because it makes sense.
Yeah, so that's actually, I still haven't called the feed company. I really call the feed company. So do we still have that feed?
Yes.
Okay, so I might need to send them a sample and I may need some lot numbers off the bags.
That's easy.
Okay, cool. So yeah, a couple chickens have just been dead and they didn't know why. They didn't have symptoms. And he was like, we had to start adding vitamins to our ducks because same thing was about to happen to them. So this weekend, it's been nice and cool, hasn't it? Like, it's been October weather almost here.
Been a really nice
week. So late September, October weather. It's been great. Like sitting out in the crisp, cool air in the morning with a cup of coffee is so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you have rabbits, it's not too hot for them to produce what's necessary to make more rabbits.
Yes.
So we're going to breed the rabbits this weekend because next week it's going to get up to 100 again.
Yeah.
And then they won't be able to breed rabbits. So hopefully, I don't know if it'll take, because I don't know if it's been long enough, cool enough, but we're going to give it a shot. And I wanted to get that done before the temperatures rise again. Hopefully when the excavator gets here, we can flatten out an area for that raised bed.
Yes.
Because I want to start planting on September 1st.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Tonight we have a Holler neighbor dinner, and I was supposed to have an excavator here. So when I committed to that, I was like, at your house, not my house, because there may be like complete chaos here. But there isn't. So
there still is.
There's chaos here, but not of that scale.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was like, I don't even know what I'm cooking for that. And I was told what dinner was.
Okay.
and told I didn't need to bring anything. I'm like, oh, but I can bring something that adds to that. And then I realized I came across a new recipe from the guy doing the tile, Mike.
Yes.
And it's 50% cucumber, 50% tomato, salt, and balsamic vinegar, and stir. No oil.
Yeah.
And it makes a really good salad. Do you like that salad?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to make one of those and bring it over and then augment the rest of it. But we haven't done a Holler Neighbor dinner in a few weeks. I've been so sick. I haven't wanted to do anything. So there's that.
Yeah.
Okay. We always talk about finances if we can. How are the finances going on the homestead?
I'm trying not to spend any money this month, which I'm not entirely succeeded at.
Yeah. So the hay debacle. So I sent a text message thinking I was replying to somebody else, and it went to a different person, and they got really pissed off at me about what I said. And they got so pissed off that even if they realized that I really was telling the truth and that message wasn't for them, I wouldn't work with them either, because I don't like working with imbalanced people. So I've been looking for hay for the sheep, and I found really good hay.
Yeah.
And it's so expensive that we're going to get 20 bales of it. And then we have some other sources for hay, but I wanted to make sure we had some, because the thing is, when you're buying hay for your sheep, you want like leafy, grassy hay, not straw-y hay. And for horses, you'll have like a more developed hay. So this is like totally appropriate for sheep. And from what I understand, some really good stuff.
Yeah.
And so I want that particularly for the coldest parts of winter. And then we'll augment with some other local hay. I've also got another guy who's at the end of September going to have square bales. But he's like, but if you can source hay anywhere else, do it. And then Tactical found somebody nearby who has hay that we need to go look at and see if it's the kind of hay we can use. Yeah. But like our requirement is that there has not been pesticides used on it. So that's what we're really looking for. And that's a little harder to find, because when they don't use pesticides, you end up with weeds unless they're controlling for weeds another way. And then Michelle might use a square baler.
Yeah.
So I could use round bales if we have to, and I can totally like easily get my hands on the kind of hay we need in round bales. But that's because of the same topography that makes running fencing hard. It makes running around bales hard.
Makes running around bales almost impossible.
It's not impossible.
I mean, if you have a tractor, sure.
Even with a tractor, it would be hard on certain places in the pasture, though.
Yeah.
So, and our sheep actually rotate all winter.
Yes.
They don't just go to the barn, and yeah. So,
the barn is reserved for, oh my God, cold.
Yeah. So it's going to snow and it's going to ice and it's going to be a week of it, and they go to the barn paddock.
Yeah. They don't. That's why they don't normally go in the barn, is I don't want a parasite load in the barn, so that when we do have a week like that, they can go in the barn.
Yeah. Plus, we can put all our old hay in the barn because we have so much of that left.
Yeah.
We don't have any of that left from last year.
There's 2 bales.
Yeah. So the hay we bought last year was not very tightly packed. So this hay, here's the good news. Those hay bales we're going to pick up are heavy and they're tightly packed.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be very, like the whole thing is, it's like, how many hay bales do you go through a week? Well, of the ones we got last year, we went through probably twice the number we would than if it was tightly packed.
Yeah.
So, so that's good. So at least we don't need as many bales of hay. I've actually never encountered hay that was that loosely packed until that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but it's fine. It actually, being loosely packed and leafy like that does allow it to be dry all the way through, which may be why that was set up that way. So that's like I'm critiquing the hay. I'm not. It was just it was packaged differently than most of the hay I get.
If this is the same hay that I helped move the other day, yeah, those bales were dense.
It's the same hay.
Yeah.
That's what you're getting next Thursday.
That was, on a scale of moving bales of hay, that was the worst, because those things were heavy.
That's what we're putting in the loft.
Those were unexpectedly heavy.
Do you need to borrow a hay ladder?
We actually might.
Okay. we'll deal with that later. So we're towards the end of the show. If anybody has anything they want to talk about, now's a good time to bring it up. My next week's schedule is going to be published as normal, but it's very likely towards the end of the week, things are going to go off the rails. Could be at the beginning of the week. My stepfather has made his final turn. So I don't think he's in a coma yet, but he's going that direction. And we're looking at days, not weeks. And if I can fly to California because it's helpful, I will. And we just don't know when that is. So based on that, there's going to be a point where like the show that's scheduled doesn't happen or somebody else does the show. As I said, I expect that next week. We'll see how that all goes. Anyway, we got another question here. Have you considered getting a subcompact tractor? I know Alan Booker is our primary go-to on equipment. Not Alan Booker, Alan Bouchard.
Yeah,
I saw B and I was just looking at Alan Booker's picture on my other screen. So have we considered getting a tractor?
Yeah, I've definitely had the conversation with him about that, and it's just has not come to fruition. What I really would like to do is get a skid steer, but yeah, it's hopefully eventually.
Yeah, we kind of keep our eye out for it, and it's also that a skid steer we're looking at $20,000 to $40,000. A tractor we're probably looking at 10 to 20. Is that what it'd be?
I don't know. I think you could probably find something for 5 around here, but
yeah. So then the question will eventually come up if it makes sense to get a tractor interim.
Yeah,
he's not thrilled about that. And then if we get one, we need to have somewhere to park it.
That's easier to deal with.
Yeah. But... So we'll just we'll decide. Like if the thing happens that happens, it's great. Like my friend Trisha just sent me a picture of a tractor, and she's like, "Here's the tractor we didn't need to buy because we bought a flat property." And I'm like, "Your whole life just got so much easier." So, yeah, I'm actually really glad for her because she works hard over there by herself when she's by herself, and I'm like, a tractor makes a whole different world. So, she's going to be like, what am I doing with all my spare time now? No, she's not. She's going to fill it up because she is who she is. And that is the homesteading philosophy. Anyway, if you like the show and want to support the work we're doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. 2, consider becoming a member. Our member webinar this week was awesome. And it was all about wild edible plants and herbal uses. It was actually more about herbal than edible, although she talked about edible as well. And I got like the last comment I saw as we went off was from one of the participants saying that was helpful enough, which I thought was funny. He heard the end of it, but it will be out in a recording in the next few days, just on the member portal. And then also we will be starting to publish our fall schedule for member webinars going into that. And then don't forget, get your Self-Reliance Festival tickets before prices go up. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week.